One of my favorite things about Minecraft being a sandbox is how creative and diverse people's experiences with it can be. I've seen countless videos of people interpreting Minecraft's story or making their own story based off of the things found in the game, and I think it's really cool that it can foster this kind of environment. So today, I decided to ask you guys for some of your theories and headcanons to discuss in a video. And boy, did you guys deliver. I'm really looking forward to showing off—
Whoa!
Xatrix? What are you doing here?
Sorry to drop in unannounced. I've just been looking into something for my next big Minecraft theory. What are you up to?
Well, I'm kind of in the middle of a video, so maybe— Well, this is a video about lore. Maybe you can help.
Well, you know what they call me.
No, I don't, sorry.
Minecraft's lore is intentionally built in a way that isn't straightforward to figure out everything, but also so that people with their own stories can make said story, without feeling the need to worry about abiding to a strict set of rules. Truly one of the best ways to have a story, in my opinion. It still has so much lore that my friend King and I have made multiple videos on our channels, looking into this uniquely and carefully built world.
Yeah, and because it's structured this way, it allows all of us to come up with our own ideas of how the story works, and that's what we'll be looking at today.
Exactly! I got some good comments on my community tab as well. I always love seeing stuff that's uniquely imagined and built up by fans of the game, whether it be rooted in canon, belief, or otherwise.
So with that, let's get into the first one.
Spawners are golems, just like blazes or guardians, just not being classified as one. In dungeons, they can move in place on their own. They can be enchanted by enchanters. And there's also an ancient blaze spawner called the Unending.
Spawners also have faces on them, which could imply some form of sentience. But they probably have a lot less consciousness than most of the other more traditional golems, since they can't move in base Minecraft. It also explains why they drop XP.
Even the spawners of dungeons have more golem-looking faces, with that squarish head and nose. We already know golems do have a connection with them, looking at their use in legends and the fact that the first of Diorite's face is just a golden spawner.
For the origin of most undead mobs, it would be easy to say that they're remnants of the long-dead player species, the civilization we see so many signs of. But if that was the case, they wouldn't be renewable in the overworld, and would eventually deplete. I do think some zombies and skeletons are resurrected individuals, but I think the majority of them, at least the wild ones in caves and on the surface, are made of random discarded carrion. In my head, when an animal like a pig or cow dies, but isn't consumed, zombification may take hold on the decomposing creature and mold the rotting flesh into a humanoid shape, making a zombie. Or if it's decomposed down to the bone, it becomes a skeleton.
The idea of the undead, or in turn the Nameless Kingdom, being able to rearrange biomatter into more units, could pose a concept of more interesting designs of undead creatures. Kind of makes me think of that monster from the end of Limbo or the flesh mob from Helldivers 2. This sort of mishmash of parts together being turned into a stronger mob would make for more darker tones for that part of things. Already a super interesting one.
Now I really want to see some kind of flesh monster in the game. It would be an interesting concept to work with, and I could even see it working as a boss.
The mushroom monstrosity is the redstone monstrosity seen in the opening cinematic. It pursued Carl to the Mushroom Island and either destroyed him or lost track of him there. Since it was so far away from Archie, it went into a dormant state, resulting in the fungus growing over them.
This is a great explanation, and it's really funny. It was not letting him get away. Maybe the Mushroom Island is Carl's deathbed, since it stopped there. That does raise the question about what the one we fight is, but maybe they just made a new one.
Something about the mushroom monstrosity being the same as the starting monstrosity is a funny thought. I would be here all day re-explaining topics from stuff I've covered before, but the idea of this endless pursuit feels tireless. Golems aren't really known to just give up, doing anything they can to fulfill their purpose. So I can definitely see that monstrosity chasing Carl down until he gets tired. It makes sense given its nature, but Archie doesn't get to make more monstrosities after his first one, never really finishing his second obsidian one.
There's a difference between zombifying and zombification, which Mojang themselves have stated in a post while not giving a reason why. The most plausible reason being that zombifying is magic, aka necromancy. The mobs influenced by this being zombies, skeletons, drowns, etc. Zombification, on the other hand, is biological and is caused by a fungal infection in the host.
Definitely. I've covered this in a previous theory video, but you are really spot on. Mojang's way of differentiating that was to show that one could be more dependent on their environment. The spores for piglins to breathe, as shown not only in Legends, but also through the Piglin Merchant of Dungeons. The idea of this fungi being able to take control is an idea I've toyed with before, such as with piglins of the Horde of the Spore, just because the concept itself is so interesting.
Zombies and skeletons are surprisingly well kept for being dead, whereas zombie piglins have their flesh rotting off their bodies and their clothes are torn to shreds. The ones brought back by an organized force are more well put together. I really like this as a concept.
I'm not scared of you, Donnie. I'm untrollable. I meant to comment this on something totally different, a post on Donnie's channel. So that was an accident. Should I delete it, or should I leave it?
The Nether was almost lifeless before the arrival of the ancient builders. Magma cubes were already there, piglins and hoglins are descendants of pigs brought from the overworld, skeletons were of course humans, blazes are golems, not sure what ghasts are, crimson fungi and netherwort evolved from red mushrooms, and striders evolved from frogs. It makes sense considering frogs eat magma cubes and magma cream is used for fire resistance potions.
The Nether itself is already quite inhospitable. So something frog-like evolving into something like that of a strider, feeding off the properties of the magma cream that comes from magma cubes, would make a lot of sense. They probably would have also evolved that hair to look more old.
There's even evidence for the magma cube not being natural either, because of their connections to slimes. I love the idea that the Nether used to be a complete wasteland, but thanks to the ancient people, now all forms of life have to suffer there.
You know the elemental type mobs like blazes and breezes? I think shulkers fit in this group, because they are ahead with something more to their bodies, shoot projectiles, and are somewhat of a golem / man-made type mob.
It does seem to be unnatural, because of the patterns on its shell. There are a lot of strange parallels. In addition to the ones mentioned, the shell spins around its body, like the blaze or breeze rods spin around their respective mobs.
Interestingly, the shulker has been described as a golem before, so it definitely fits somewhat into that subsection based on your descriptors. Along with Mojang mentioning this, its name still extends to its placeholder name, Abstract Golem, in the files according to the wiki, showing Mojang did intend for it to be a golem of sorts. I wonder if the reason the entities can be coloured ever meant they considered letting players make their own. Maybe not, but if so, I wonder how that would have worked.
Experience equals experiences. What if the reason baby mobs and newly spawned players don't drop any experience is because they hadn't had any experiences? If experience is just life / soul energy, is our takeaway from baby mobs lacking such a drop supposed to be baby mobs are lifeless? I think not.
A lot of the game can be seen as just for gameplay's sake, but it's always fun and can be important to start a conversation on things like this, depending on whatever it could be. Allowing that conversation and understanding of Minecraft as a collective is good for everyone, to look at it not just objectively, but also subjectively.
I really like this explanation. It implies that the Ender Dragon is ancient or has had a lot of experiences because of the XP it drops, and that Skulk may contain more than just the souls of the mobs it traps, but the memories too.
The Illusioner is actually in the game, but is so good at illusioning that we don't notice.
I think this is just canon. We will never get the Illusioner because it was always here. Cave noises are caused by PTSD from an ancient war Steve lived through.
If this were to be confirmed, the amount of sounds that sound like the Warden's sonic booms, or the end portalish sound, would give a lot more terrifying implications to something like this. Along with things like the Redstone Golem and Heart of Ender being able to make some of these sounds too.
A lot of them sound somewhat mechanical, and they all sound unnatural, so there probably is more merit to this than I first thought. I wonder if Steve had a life before we took control of them, Deltarune style.
All is canon. Yep, all of it. Why? If Minecraft is a multiverse, and that multiverse is infinite, then that means all possible series of events must exist within that multiverse. On top of this, all dimensions, even if they only seem to exist in some universes, do exist in all of them. It's either that they're inaccessible or are accessible, but are merely empty voids in those universes.
Hits the nail on the head. Mojang wants you to tell your own stories in the game, and not be confined by a set lore. Also, it's just more fun to think that in some way, Jesse and the gang could meet the heroes from Dungeons and work together to fight Malgosha or something.
It's definitely one of the best and most accessible ways to tell a story. Yes, there's a main story Mojang wants to tell, but it's set in such a way that it doesn't get in the way of whatever story you might want to tell. But that doesn't mean their story itself is necessarily multiverse. People who are really into discovering the lore can look into it, needing it to be thought about, picked apart, and really looked at. I made an entire video on the concept that even Mojang mentions in their own game design book, showcasing different ways people do their world building to really get the point across.
Pumpkins naturally contain a small amount of soul energy, which is why they can be used to create golems. This is how most golems are created, although there are darker, less innocent methods to do it, which are mainly only known to the Illagers. I think this makes sense. We know most living things have soul energy, so it would make sense that some plants have higher concentrations of it, and it would explain why we see evokers, enchanters, and other magic Illagers in the Fiery Forge, because they're responsible for bringing golems to life.
Certain things like pumpkins without the carving don't set the creation off. Maybe it could be something like the shapes and symbols used in certain ways, what can be perceived as being alive. We can see symbols are already everywhere in the world of Minecraft. The runes from the ancient hunts and enchanting itself are also indications that certain shaping could also have a hand in things like golem creation and further.
In reference to the seer from Minecraft Legends, it's just another puppet for the orb.
The seer's movements, as I've mentioned in my own videos, probably way too many times now, are similar to magic casters, such as seen with Illagers. They could be forcing the orb to act as it wants. Their scream, as seen with the corruption of the night beacon, could indicate their state, leaving them sounding as if they're struggling to breathe. It could be because of the orb fighting back. Again, a lot more detail and backing in my own videos, but I won't take 300 years to explain everything right now.
The seer does seem to have a bit more control over the orb than the Arch-Illager did, but it definitely didn't win in the long run. There's a reason it was in the overworld for the events of Dungeons. The orb is too powerful to be in anyone's control for too long. Trial chambers are ancient casinos.
This is probably the most accurate interpretation of the lore I've seen. That feeling, it's all your friends gather around a trial vault, hoping for that equivalent to the jackpot. A trident, or that oh so coveted heavy core. I wouldn't leave a trial chambers if it meant I could keep using the same vaults. Real winners never quit.
I like to think that when the creaking is attacked, the heart starts beating heavily to the point where the resin in the heart is actually pumped and spat out onto other blocks, just like a real-life heart would.
It definitely feels weirdly organic in many areas, as if the creaking is its equivalent to a white blood cell, protecting the body, the Power Garden, from foreign intruders. You.
To add to this, the first few times you hit the creaking, it doesn't do anything. But after you put enough force into it, it starts bleeding. You have to cause some serious damage.
A headcanon I've had is that the obsidian monstrosity, which we see unfinished in the obsidian pinnacle, was meant to be a sort of body for the orb, to allow it to move around independently from Archie, hence the obsidian and portal magic coursing through it. Although, there's not a lot to really prove this. It seems to be very shrouded in mystery, for now.
Honestly, this makes a ton of... Wait, isn't this you?
Huh? No.
Oh, okay then. Well, I think it makes sense. The head of it resembles the vengeful heart of Ender, and despite being called the obsidian monstrosity, it seems to be mostly purple, like it's being enchanted. If Spicewood does end up happening, I would love to see more about this. Well, those are all the ones we had time for today. What do you think about these? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear some more of your theories too. If this video does well enough, maybe we can make another one. And I want to give a big shout out to Xatrix. He's a great creator and it was a ton of fun to collaborate with him. I'll link his channel in the description.
Thanks for having me, Dandalorian. This was really fun.
Thanks for stopping by. Anyway, have a great day and I'll see you next time.